Last week, I promised a big show. We didn't announce the guest, but I promised everything was going to come in big. And I think I delivered. Steve Buchanan here, along with my co-host Julian Edlow, a three-man crew for this show once again. And the studly man that you also see on your screen, if you're listening to this, go watch it because it's worth watching because of all the studs on this show. Ryan Hodge from FantasyLabs is joining us here too as well, having some drinks, looking good. Happy to have you on the show, man.
Hey, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Julian. I don't know if I'd go with three studs, maybe two studs, one dud, typical NBA build or something like that. So, but yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the intro. Too kind.
Gotta put you on the pedestal. And then, of course, we're here to talk about all of the props that you can bet over on the DraftKings Sportsbook. As Super Bowl is approaching just a mere days away as we record this Thursday afternoon, we have a lot of props that we want to fire off and get into that noggin of yours as you're watching. Maybe have some pushback on some, maybe some that we like, but we're going to discuss all of that here. I'm just going to kick things right off. I'm going to go with one of my favorite plays in this game here. We're going to start off with Tyreek Hill going over 92.5 receiving yards, which is currently at minus 125 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. Getting a lot of love on the over here. 93% of the handle is on the over. 90% of the money is on the over, because why would you want to bet the under on this guy? Could you imagine betting the under on this and feeling good about this, watching the Super Bowl and going, I really want Tyreek Hill to go under here? I just don't see it happening. When these two teams met earlier in the season, that was the game that Tyreek Hill went absolutely ham. 13 catches, 269 yards. Do a little quick division there. That's an average of 20.7 yards per reception. The lowly guy that was on the Buccaneers that took the brunt of this offense from Tyreek Hill was Carlton Davis, who allowed 9 of those catches for 211 yards. Like, just absolutely smoked. So if you're the Buccaneers, probably maybe want to keep Davis, out of coverage against Tyreek Hill. But it's also kind of surprising, too, when you look at that, because obviously Tyreek Hill is the primary slot receiver for the Chiefs, and Carlton Davis rarely covers the slot. So all of that work, basically all of his production there, came on the outside. He's going to mostly see Sean Murphy-Bunting, another cornerback you can target against, by the way. Don't worry about him. But another cornerback that you can target against it, but they mostly came against Davis. Already, Davis in the playoffs has been a massive liability for the Buccaneers, has allowed 16 receptions, 273 yards, and 3 touchdowns scored against him. Ryan, we'll start with you, bud. What do you think about the over on this one?
Yeah, you said something in the beginning, too, where, look, if you're, depending on your goal for the Super Bowl, if you just want to sweat and you're doing this socially, if you're really trying to grind out a profit, I think will dictate what you are and are not betting. But either way, I like this for the sweat and for the true value here. I have it projected for just shy of 100 yards, which I believe puts it at about 8 or 9 yards on the over versus what DK has it on the sportsbook, right? 92.5 maybe, I think is the current line. So, yeah, and even if you start to bump up his market share with maybe a limited Demarcus Robinson or a limited Sammy Watkins, right, with Demarcus hitting the COVID list. Look, both of these guys are expected to play, but still, the extra couple routes, you start to bump up his market share to 27%, and we go over 100 yards. So from a raw number, I think it's great. And then just the volatility that comes with Tyreek Hill. Every single look, if you have the under, every single time Patrick Mahomes drop backs and he holds on to it for that over 2 second mark, he's looking to target somebody deep. You're like, well, that's probably my under busting on Tyreek Hill right now, because he just needs 1 or 2, as a lot of these receivers do on the Chiefs. So I totally agree here, and definitely in step with the over for Tyreek Hill.
Julian, don't be a coward. Give a case for the under.
The case for the under is that Tyreek Hill had 200 yards in the first quarter the last time these teams met,
right,
and finished with 269. So they somewhat shut him down for the last 3 quarters after making adjustments. You told me to make an argument. Let's not, now you're talking about Carlton Davis too. Let's not pick on poor Carlton, because the Bucs threw him to the Wolves in that game and said, go cover Tyreek Hill one-on-one. We learned very quickly that didn't work. Then they started doubling him. They start bracketing him, and it got better. It also got better because he had already had such a massive game, and Kansas City was was up big in that game, even though Tampa wound up covering the 3.5. That was a backdoor fourth quarter cover. So I'm not going to bet the under on Tyreek Hill, but I'm very curious to see how this game starts in terms of Tampa's coverage.
Sure.
Are they going to let it ride and try and play Hill one-on-one, and then when he gets that first big bomb, then say, okay, we got to make the changes again? I hope they're not that dumb, but maybe. Or are they going to be all over Tyreek Hill, and then it opens up, okay, let's look at some Travis Kelce props. And Tampa struggles against tight ends to begin with. So I think Kelce is a guy that we need to talk about just as much as Hill. So it's really how Tampa decides to start this game defensively that's going to be really intriguing to me. I think that, I was looking, you can bet first quarter props, first half props in terms of yardage. I was thinking Tampa has to be all over Hill early in this game. Maybe you look at some Kelce first half yards or receptions, and Hill's the guy that comes into play late after they adjust to Kelce. I'm not going to play the under on Hill, but I will say maybe there's a chance for a slow start there, just for some over adjustments to not let Hill break this game open early like the last one did.
Hodge, let me run to you real quick, because just talking about Kelce here, I didn't really have any props specifically that I like for him, but I'm a little bit nervous about him in this game. I wouldn't say the Buccaneers are a great team against opposing tight ends, but they haven't been a bad team against them either. And obviously what Travis Kelce has been doing has been like ungodlike, basically for the past 2 months. Like, he's been nearly unstoppable. I mean, you can almost count on him for grabbing 10 catches, over 100 yards, but for whatever reason, I don't feel great about him in this matchup. Like, I would rather go with somebody like Tyreek Hill, or maybe someone like Chris Godwin if I'm taking an over reception, or yardage on. For whatever reason, I'm just kind of weary on Travis Kelce. You kind of feeling the same way, or am I a complete idiot and I should just keep riding Travis Kelce in this unbelievable streak that he's been on?
Yeah, it's a very good hot streak. Tampa Bay does struggle against covering opposing teams' tight ends. I do think that Travis Kelce's props are inflated.
Yeah,
I think some of them are just way too high. If he ends up with, let's just say, like, call it 24% of the team's market share of targets, and then you kind of give him like 5 or 6 catches, like, I think he definitely comes in on the under, and that's I think that's a reasonable projection for him. You have to start really looking into his outlier situations for him to crack 95 yards.
Yeah, sure.
And he's had a ton of outlier situations recently, so they seem less outlier, but they're still outlier, right? And so, yeah, I don't have any action down on any Kelce props. I avoided his anytime TD props. It's just like way too juiced up. You have to get the 2+ TDs anytime on a guy like Kelce to really go plus money on something like that. So, I'm with you on just. Look, sometimes the best bet is a bet you don't make. I think I'll say that a few more times during this show, since we're talking about so many player props, but that's where I'm at.
Another one I want to talk about here, and this is getting a little juiced up for my liking right now, but I still think this number is just so incredibly low that I'm surprised it's still sitting here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 7.5 rush attempts. It's up to -143 right now. 143 usually stands for I love you. I don't love the line, but I do like the number. So this is where I'm like, this is like a two-parter for me. So he practiced fully on Wednesday, full practice. And we're expected to see a full workload from him into this game. I mean, last week when he did return, he played on just under half of the offensive snaps for the Chiefs. We also have Le'Veon Bell coming back, so there is that in the mix. But if you like the over on this one, I feel like you also have to take the under on Darrell Williams' 8.5 carries, because if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is healthy and Le'Veon Bell is healthy, where is Williams going to get these 8.5 carries? Because I don't see it. But when CEH has been healthy, he's taken 10 carries in 10 of the 14 games that he's played, including week 11 against the Buccaneers. I know the Buccaneers are a good run defense. I don't care about that. All I need is Patrick Mahomes to hand them the ball and run forward 8 times to win this bet. Am I like totally crazy? We'll start with you, Julian. Or is this just one that it's just, I feel like you got to take it. Take some of your Dogecoin, profit and put it in this one.
I mean, it is low, and it's low for reasons, but it's low. So it's all about the unknown. How healthy is he after, coming back and barely playing and not doing anything with those carries in the AFC Championship game? How healthy is Bell? How much is he going to factor in? How much does Kansas City trust Williams after Williams got the job done in the AFC Championship game with his touches? Three-headed backfields can be messy, especially when you have, they're also different too. It's, the young back of the future that's banged up. What's he going to do? The washed up guy that's also banged up, that's been so good in the past. The guy that's healthy, that's produced for you lately, that you have right there, that if you need him, you have him. Like it clouds things up so much that I feel like I don't want to get involved with it. One thing that you said that makes sense that I know I don't want to do, like if I'm going to bet the Kansas City backfield, I'm going to pick my best bet and bet it. I'm not going to bet CEH over and Williams under and compound the problem if they wind up going to Williams 10 times and CEH 6 times. Then you lose twice and you look like a big dumb idiot, Steve. So I'm not saying I hate the bet. I'm just saying I don't know how to figure it out. It's also a Tampa run defense that's been so spectacular. And you just gave Patrick Mahomes $500 million. So why not throw it a bunch and just avoid running altogether? I don't know. It's a low number. It catches my eye for sure. I just don't know if this is the spot where I want to play it.
Hodge, big crypto guy, I know. You and I are doing well in the crypto market right now. What do you think?
Yeah, so I don't know about those Dogecoin profits. Really depends on when you got in there. But I will
I'll
say,
show you my account. Account.
Good. Hey, sharp money there. The 7.5 is too low. 8 is too low. 8.5 is too low. 9 is too low. If you give him 50% of this team's rush attempts, that leaves a lot of other market share for, honestly, there's 3 other backs, because I think you do have to account for 10 to 12, maybe even 15% market share of rushes with a healthy toe for Mahomes, right? Like, sure. I think Mahomes definitely gets one down at the 5. Like those are going to happen. Okay. If you give him 50% of the team's market share of touches, which I think is a very conservative rush attempt, market share of rush attempts, he eclipses 7.5. And I don't even think it's a sweat. I mean, this is one of those things where, like, we could be tweeting at halftime, like, hey, didn't even have to sweat it, with a green checkbox next to the over, right? Like, standard tout, tweet 101, like right at the half, just bang, lock it up, profit, baby. But I do think it's too low. The juice is high, but it's a way too low of a number. If I don't know if DK allows you to do this, but can I push this to 8.5? Can I buy a rush attempt to get 120 or something like that? Because I would be more inclined to do that, but sure. I still think 143 is a fine number, and I think 7.5 is way too low. So
real quick, there are plenty of adjusted and alternate numbers. We can't get that. It is the Super Bowl, so I don't know what's coming. As far as I know, we can't get that, but considering it's still Thursday and it's, what's the juice right now?
143.
That doesn't mean Saturday night, Sunday morning, this isn't going to be 8.5 plus 110 or 8.5 even money.
Yeah, I would. So from a betting threshold, as people are listening to this of the week, I would bet this all the way to 9.5, especially as you start to get into plus money. I think that this is, look, at plus money at 9.5, I think that's a fantastic bet. Because I have them for almost 11.5 at 51% market share of the team's rush attempts. So
I'm hoping, and I would feel more comfortable doing this at, like, say 8.5, even at like minus 110.
Yes.
Rather than now, because I think it's one of these things where, like, if he gets it, like you said, it's going to be 11, 12, 13, 14 carries. And if he doesn't get it, it's like, all right, well, he's a little more banged up than we think. He's completely out of favor, and he got 4 or 5, and Williams gets whatever, 12.
Julian, speaking like this, is a guy who clearly doesn't invest in crypto. Hodge and I can just throw this out there. It's not
never said I wasn't gonna bet it. I just said it's a murky backfield at the moment.
Okay, so I just want to let anybody on a little secret here. The first couple props that we just threw out there were ones that I suggested, and Hodge has been on both of them. He did give us a little bit of a spoiler before the show started that we have to convince him on a couple, so I'm going to just guess that I'm going to go to this one here, over 4.5 sacks at plus 120. I'm going to guess this is one he didn't like. And let me let you know, this was one of Julian's suggestions. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because let me tell you, Julian, I want you to set this one up because not only am I thinking you're going to have to convince Hodge, you're probably going to have to convince me too. So please, you set this one up and then we'll just tell you why this is awful.
Well, I told you, you said, give me your 3 best bets. I said, I don't have any best bets on this game, but I'll send you 3 talking points. This is one of my talking points.
All right, let's hear it.
Sacks prop. I am intrigued by the over 4.5 sacks at plus money. I know that the numbers might go against this in terms of these teams don't allow a lot of sacks. Let's see. Tampa allowed 1.4 per game. Kansas City allowed 1.4 per game. That's not even 3. So if we're going to see 3 sacks in this game, that's an obvious under. Now, looking into this game specifically, I think it could be an outlier game. I would like better than plus 120 to bet this, and I'm hoping that because the numbers say it's an easy under, that it gets bet under, and maybe we can take it at plus 150 or something where it's more intriguing. In terms of sacks per game by the defenses this season, these teams aren't bad. Kansas City, not great, 2.1, but over the last 3 games, it's 2.7. They got 4 sacks in the AFC Championship game. Tampa's just under 3 per game. They sacked Aaron Rodgers 5 times in the NFC Championship game.
Right.
I think that Fisher being out for Kansas City is a huge deal. The dude backing him up was on Carolina's offensive line in the Super Bowl against the Broncos. He gave up the 2 biggest plays that changed that game. He gave up the play that led to the Broncos' defensive touchdown, and he gave up the play where Cam Newton famously didn't dive on the ball when it was loose late in that game. That's the guy replacing Fisher that's coming in against a really good Tampa front 7. Mahomes can move around. He can get the ball out. It's different, but those plays were on Cam Newton during an MVP season. So I think that there's something to that. And then on the other end, I think that Spagnuolo's defenses have brought pressure on Brady in big games. And the Tampa offensive line has been a huge, maybe the biggest improvement on that team this season, but we've seen it be bad. We've seen it be undisciplined to start the season. If there's any kind of regression in a game where we know Brady, when the pressure's there, Brady's going to drop, I just think this could be this is clearly a contrarian play. I just think this game might play out a little bit differently than we expect. And if we get better plus money here, or if it drops to 3.5, I'm interested.
What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, so this one wasn't so much that I'm on like hard under. It's more, I think this is a bet that I'm not willing to take. I think it's priced pretty appropriately. The plus 110 is enticing rather than even money or minus 110 or minus 115. I just think you have 2 quarterbacks who don't take a ton of sacks. I think you have 2 great offensive lines. I think Kansas City is like a top 10 offensive line unit, somewhere right in there. And I think it's appropriately priced, and it's not where I'm looking to get any action down at. The thing is, if it goes to 3.5, you're looking at minus 125, minus 130 then, right? Like, and is that really somewhere that you kind of want to get down on sacks? Like the JPP versus no Eric Fisher is a massive edge for the Bucs here. Like, I genuinely think it is one of the first things that we talked about, or that I talked about when I was looking at the Bucs money line at plus 145. So like, I think that's a big deal. I don't know, 4.5 is a lot. Yeah.
So for me, like, I think about if there was ever a situation as you were going to be able to get to Patrick Mahomes, it was going to be last time against the Bills, because he was coming in with that, injured toe, not as mobile as we usually see him. And they only sacked him once. They had him under pressure on 11 of his 39 dropbacks. So it was 28%, which has been about the average that Mahomes has been under pressure to begin with. But we look at the 2 teams here, the Buccaneers and the Chiefs. When it comes to pass rush amongst the teams that were left in the playoffs, these are 2 of the worst teams with rushing the opposing passer. So I don't see a scenario where they get over 4.5. Like, is there a way that they could come close? Yes, I could see them being at 3. I think that's an obtainable number. I think people kind of keep thinking about those games where Tom Brady was against the Saints and he just felt like he couldn't get a pass off, but the Saints were one of the best pass rushing teams in the league. And I think people keep thinking about that and how Brady's been under pressure when, quite frankly, other than those games against the Saints, that Buccaneers defensive line has been very good at protecting Brady. So I don't think there's going to be much pressure from either side. I don't see this hitting over 4.5. It's a great number, but of the billions of bets that you could take on the DraftKings Sportsbook, this is not even the top 10,000 for me. And that's actually probably being generous. So go ahead.
Put it this way. I don't know if I'm going to bet it. I went to this because I think this is going to be one of the keys of this game. Is like we talked about, that JPP matchup without Fisher in there. Will Tampa's offensive line remain as strong as it has after it was like so bad? Like you go back to like that Bears loss, like we know it has the floor to be really bad. We know the game script to beating Brady in these kind of games. Historically, it's been, beaten to a pulp. We know that you have to get pressure on him. And then these two defenses did combine for 9 sacks last week. And we're talking about, these quarterbacks. Josh Allen was, an MVP candidate who has legs and can really move around. Aaron Rodgers is going to be the MVP and is an all-time great, like, Brady and Mahomes. And those guys were going down like a sack of potatoes 2 weeks ago. So I just think I have a feeling, I have a lean where I probably won't bet this, and then there'll be like 6 sacks in this game. It'll be one of those games where I'll be like, I knew it was going to be something weird like this, and I did nothing about it.
And unfortunately for me, it wasn't even my top 10,000, so I didn't even really look into it.
It's way down.
Ryan, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but was there any props that you had like off the top that you were kind of interested in? But if not, that's totally fine. We'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, I have one or two that I thought were great. I thought Tom Brady MVP plus 200, I think is a fantastic bet. Basically, the implied odds or the percentage of the Bucs winning, I think is like 40-something%, right? But you're getting a little bit more with Brady MVP. So you take that 10% difference between the two, and I just think there's a little bit of value there. And if the Bucs win, I think it's highly probable that Tom Brady is the MVP. Right. It's a split backfield. Look, unless JPP has all 5 sacks to hit the over, like I'm not sure what defensive players may be taking home the MVP.
Devin White's been good.
Yes. Yeah. I'm just like the outlier situations that have to happen for those types of players to get it. It's highly probable. And look, that's why the odds are the odds, right? I mean, he's the favorite on the Bucs to win MVP. But look, I think if you're going to bet the Bucs money line, that's a lot of B's. I prefer the value in Tom Brady instead at MVP.
Do you real quick when you're doing that, just because it never feels great to the Bucs win and like whatever the last Patriots win, Edelman gets Super Bowl MVP. Because that feels so awful, do you split you're already looking at an underdog, so like there's nothing wrong with Bucs plus 140 money line. Do you split this up at all, a certain percentage Bucs money line and Brady MVP?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll still bet the Bucs money line for sure, right? It's not that I'm just taking Brady and avoiding the money line. Okay. So if you're going to say a unit is $100, I would do a full unit or 2 units on the money line, and then do a half unit bet on like an MVP or something like that on Brady specifically. And there's some other outliers too that I think like if you're kind of riding that Bucs train, like getting on some of those anytime TDs for like Leonard Fournette or over on Ronald Jones receptions, like you kind of start to take a little bit of the implied probability of the Bucs winning, what kind of needs to happen. Maybe it's the over on 4.5 sacks. Like I said, right, there's a lot that comes into that. So anyways, yeah, that's where I'm at.
I'm actually glad that you brought that up, because this was the question I wanted to bring up too. When there's so many bets that you have, like obviously the Super Bowl, there's millions and millions of bets that you can take. When you're taking yours and you're deciding what you want to do you almost have a game script in mind, and then you kind of start making your bets in that way? So it's like, okay, so if you like the Buccaneers to win, now it starts making sense to kind of take some of these maybe anytime touchdowns, almost like building a daily fantasy lineup, but you're doing it with bets. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And yes and no. There can still be value in Tyreek Hill's over on receiving, even if I think the Bucs win, right? So like not necessarily, but Do I talk myself into an over on Leonard Fournette rush attempts because I think the Bucs might win? Maybe, right? Like not as much though. To me, it's still just value in the line. Is plus 1,800 for Patrick Mahomes? Is there any type of an edge? Do I make that line closer to plus 1,500? Do I make that line closer to plus 1,650? Yes, right? Or no. So great. Right. Then I lay off of it or I take it. So not really, but yeah, I think it's hard to get away from our own biases as we start to look at a game. And that's, I think, ultimately what turns long-term profitable bettors into long-term profitable bettors, is just continuing to follow a system. So, but also it's a Super Bowl. Like, I'm going to be waiver extended just like I am every year. It's great.
Getting back to some of the player props, this is one that really caught my eye, and I'm surprised that the line is so inflated as it is, but this probably means it's going to end up being a loser. So I'm going to probably talk everybody into a loser here. The Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns in the first half is at plus 180. So I kind of dived into this a little bit because I said that those odds seem really high. Why are they so high? 55% of Mahomes' career touchdowns have come in the first half. He has 37 in the second, which is, remember that number, because that's probably going to come into play on one of our other bets we're going to talk about, and 27 in the first. So then I kind of looked at what are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers allowing in the first half? They allow an average of 13 points in the first half. That was just outside the top 10 in the league during the regular season. For me, going up against this secondary that has just been so unbelievably bad. Like, truly, it feels like after like week 5 or 6, this Tampa Bay secondary has just been atrocious, like beatable on so many areas of the field. And teams are just marching down the field against them consistently. Now you have, basically the face of the league, Patrick Mahomes, going up against the former face of the league and Tom Brady. I just feel like he's going to be constantly throwing the ball after Clyde Edwards-Helaire hits his 8 rushing attempts, and it's just going to be constantly going downfield against this awful, awful secondary. I am so surprised that this is at plus 180, but at the same time, there's got to be a reason why this is at plus 180. What do we think?
So, I mean, it's plus money for a reason, right? Just like we've been talking about. The odds are the odds for a reason. Both Kansas City and I won't say Tampa, but Kansas City and Tom Brady have been, slow starters in some of these bigger games. We remember last year, every Kansas City game, they came out flat and then the miraculous comebacks. That happens again going down 9-0 to Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. And Tom Brady has scored 3 points in the first quarter in 9 Super Bowl appearances, which is a remarkable stat. Not that has anything to do with Mahomes' touchdown passes, but just, I guess, game script wise, if we get out to these like grinders that Brady always seems to be in, maybe you do win your CEH bet early and Mahomes isn't slinging 2 touchdowns in the first half. I know you want both of them. Come out first 3 drives, 9 runs to CEH, and then we can get to Mahomes slinging it.
Tout those green check marks. Go ahead.
So, look, I'm sort of with you. Plus 180 does seem pretty good. I would think this would maybe be more around like plus 130, plus 140, nearly doubling your money on this. I don't mind that. And I will say, I'm going to talk about second quarter scoring a little bit later. I think it kind of fits into that. Like the Chiefs scored 21 points in the second quarter against the Bills last week. They're one of the best second quarter scoring teams in the NFL. So are the Bucs, which means the Chiefs are, going to be going back and forth on offense if Tampa's scoring as well. So for the odds, I don't mind this bet. No.
I don't have a strong lean here, Steve. I think I really do. I don't have that big of a lean here. This was one of the ones where I said I think you guys need to convince me on. I think Mahomes is accounting for close to 70%, and that might be a slight exaggeration. It might be closer to like 66 or 67% of his team's touchdowns. So like the Kansas City point, like it all comes through Mahomes. So I am more likely to bet the over on an higher alternate line of the total touchdown passes that he throws in all four quarters than just the first half. You're you're baking in unneeded variance into that first half, and into the whole game. I think it's the same. I think he might be plus 180 for the over on 3.5 for the whole game. And to me, that feels like a slightly sharper bet, allotting yourself a little bit more time for the outcome to happen. So I don't have a strong lean here. This is one of those ones where I was saying you guys have to convince me.
Here you go, real quick. Mahomes
Yes.
over 3.5 touchdown passes is plus 185. I
There you
prefer
go.
that. Steve, your bet stinks.
See, and that's where I'm saying I think I would rather take that. It's still difficult though, right? He could throw 2, they're up, then CEH gets his 8 touches in the third and fourth quarter, right? And that also
not touches, rushes.
Sorry,
right?
rush attempts. Thank you for the correction. But let's be real. I don't know how many passes that guy's going to catch, anyways. Which also might be a decent segue into one of the prop bets that I know you guys wanted to touch on, which was Mahomes versus Brady's passing yards. And so I'm going to allude to that a little bit. So sorry if I'm jumping the gun.
Go for it.
But if we do think that Mahomes gets over 2 touchdowns or over 1.5, so gets to 2 touchdowns in the first half, does that not tend to start to give us a little bit of a game script towards the end of the fourth quarter, 7-8 minutes left, where CEH is getting those rush attempts? Patrick Mahomes is throwing the ball less, so we have to dial back his overall, pass attempts. Chiefs are playing prevent, and now Brady is just throwing for 60, 70 yards on these drives, right? And maybe they kick a field goal and then an onside, whatever. I don't know, man. These outcomes are insane, but anyways, segue into that other prop bet.
So
Nope. Go ahead.
I listed this one, and the other 2 that I took were higher plus money bets, and this one is minus 165. So you're laying a lot of juice on this one. Patrick Mahomes versus Jimmy Garoppolo is not Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady. I laid a lot of juice on a handful, probably about 5 Mahomes versus Jimmy G bets last year. And I think I went 4-1 on them. And even the loss at minus 170 or whatever cuts into those profits, but you're still profitable. Those worked out really well. The game script worked out fantastically in that one. For anytime Mahomes is down multiple scores, slinging, then it's over. He's going to get stats whether Kansas City wins that game or not. This one, I feel it goes a little bit hand in hand with me, I guess, giving the most resistance in the CEH prop, even though if you made me bet it, I'm betting the over. I don't know, against this Tampa defense, I'm not convinced that why not just let the guy that you just gave $500 million throw it more, even when the game script goes later and you're up a score with the ball throughout the game, going against a top-ranked rush defense. Why not let Mahomes give screens to Kelsey, give screens to Hill? Look how Kansas City won that game against Cleveland. That wasn't even with Patrick Mahomes in the game. They're going to Tyreek Hill short. Which just we're talking about Hill's yard. I like Hill's receptions just as much, and I think you can get plus money on it. He's a guy that they're going to go to. It's like their run game, giving Hill a screen pass. So Mahomes got 482, I think, in this matchup last time around. I think Kansas City, and I know, Steve, you think this, Kansas City's secondary is a little underrated. They've done a really good job recently, and Tampa's is ones you can poke holes in. So I'm just confident enough that Mahomes, even if Kansas City's a front runner, gets more yards, I think that Mahomes will do enough late based on the type of player he is and the matchup in the run game to keep that distance from Brady, even if Brady's putting up some numbers.
So I think you guys went over this really well, so I don't have too much to add, but I'm doing the keto diet right now. One of the things I have to avoid is juice. There's a lot of juice on Patrick Mahomes at minus 165, so I'm going to avoid that, just like the diet. The problem is that, we're talking about 2 vastly different secondaries with the Chiefs and the Buccaneers, and that's kind of where I get held up here. When these two went head to head this season, I tallied it up when they played on the same weeks, active, whatnot. Mahomes won this bet 12 times. Brady won this 4. Like, it was so unbelievably lopsided when these two were head to head during the regular season. But I would much rather take the Brady side just because a plus 130 against, probably one of the best quarterbacks with a plethora of weapons that he can throw to, playing in a game script where he's behind. That's probably where I would be siding on for that one. So, Mahomes is the answer, in my opinion, but that's why the line is set as it is. But I think if there's a more enticing play, the 130 for Brady is absolutely the play if you think the Chiefs are going to win this, like I think the Chiefs are going to win this. I think the Buccaneers cover, but I think the Chiefs win this game outright. So I would side with the Brady one.
Tight window.
Well, I don't think that there's no way this is a blowout. There's no way this is a blowout. I don't think that that's happening at all. But I have, Buccaneers at 3.5. That's the magic number that I wanted to get it at. I have it at 3.5. It's back down to 3. But, Julian, we've talked about this numerous times. How bad have the Chiefs been against the spread, especially since that Week 8 matchup against the Jets?
Mm-hmm.
They're 2-10 or whatever, 2-9 in that span. It's been atrocious.
They turned the Jets on last week, or whatever, right. 2 weeks ago.
So that's just kind of where I'm at on that one. Let's move over to the last one, which is, we talked about this, Julian, you mentioned a little bit. Highest scoring quarter. I agree with you on this one. It's the second quarter, plus 160. That's technically the odds on favorite for this one. But you look at what these teams have average, what they're scoring in the second quarter, 10.2 points, both for the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. Looking at what they're allowing, the Chiefs allowing an average of 6.7 points, which is one of the lowest in the league. Tampa Bay at 7.4, which is just above league average. I like this one a lot because this is like a fun sweat for a specific quarter. Like, I love these quarter bets. I love the half bets. That's why I gave that Mahomes one, but both of you kind of spit on it and said it was dumb. So that's fine. We'll save that for another day, but I love these quarter bets. I was happy that you brought this one out because I did want to talk about this a little bit, but that definitely seems like the play to make for me. Obviously, you can put all the data you want. Ryan said it earlier. You can't really predict these games. Everything is wild and crazy, but I do like this one a lot.
Yeah. And again, like, this game is tough. I don't have best bets. This one just jumped out to me, and I think it's a good spot to talk about. You gave the numbers on how these teams score in the second quarter, and Tampa also has one of the worst second quarter scoring defenses in the NFL. The way these teams are playing, like, Mahomes got 21 on the board in the second quarter against Buffalo. Brady, we saw that half ended in Green Bay. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen again, but it just speaks to kind of what Tampa's attitude is, how they're playing at the moment. I actually think this is kind of a brutal sweat because if you get a bunch of points in the second quarter, now you have to root for like no points in the third and fourth quarter. And it's like weird, like if you're a couple points short at going to the end of the third quarter, you got to root for like a field goal to end the quarter instead of a touchdown. And then you got to root for another under in the fourth quarter. I think it feels like a mess. And I really haven't bet many of these.
Hold on. I got to stop you for a second. You want to talk about brutal sweats? I need Ryan's opinion on this. Ryan, Julian loves doing these multi-day parlays where like he'll parlay things that are like 3 or 4 days long. Is that like the worst thing you could ever do? Because I hate that. I need same day spots.
I'm not greedy. I don't need to get paid tonight.
No, quiet. He wants to do like 3-4 days of like basketball games or whatnot, like all this crap. Like, I need same day before I go to bed. I need to know. What's your thoughts on that real quick?
I think you got to get your money in good, and Julian's probably doing that more times than people who are getting their money in for same game parlay, right? Like, hey, let me tease the Bucks up to 10.5 and the under down, and I can parlay that with a anytime Mike Evans TD. I think so it's just like also from somebody who bets golf. Dude, I'm sweating for 4 days anyway. So like,
I could never.
Yeah. Have you ever sweated a Counter-Strike match? I mean, those things can take 12 hours from start to end. Like, it's kind of in me to be okay with that. So no, I'm with Julian. You got to get your money in good, and that's all that counts. We take every percent we can.
The worst thing people can do is like, all right, I like 2 favorites. I really like them in a money line parlay, but it's minus 180. I need to put one more in. The one that you put in is always going to lose on that, Saturday afternoon. So I'll look to Sunday. Okay, I have one team I love on Sunday, or I love this team on Monday Night Football. I'm just going to use that. I'll wait and get paid.
Honey, we need to take Ryan off the guest list. Okay, let's keep going with this second quarter. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead with your.
No, I don't have much else left on it. I think this one is one where I went completely against the numbers on the sack prop. This is one where the numbers strongly point to this being the highest scoring quarter, and maybe things tighten up later in the game. The fourth quarter is obviously a quarter where, depending on the score, things can get wild. But if it's a close game, I think we all think it's at least going to be a close game. The second quarter is a quarter where both of these teams have kind of opened things up, and then things can maybe get tight in the second half of a game like this.
I can assure you the only quarter bets and props that I will have is whatever number my squares are on. I don't touch these quarter bets, so I'll leave it at that for you gentlemen.
You know what? We need that acknowledgement too. Like, if maybe some people just need to stay away, and you're the voice of reason to stay away. All right, before we wrap up this show here, is there anything else we wanted to get to? I feel like we covered a good amount of props here, everything we wanted to hit on. Do you have anything you wanted to cover, Ryan, before we head up?
No, I would say the only other bet that the only other prop that I've bet that we didn't touch on was a Patrick Mahomes to score the first TD. I believe that's at 1,800 or plus 1,800 right now on DK. I think it was closer to plus 2,000 early on in the week, but it did get bet a little bit. You guys can fact check me on that. I would have to double check. But if you look at rush attempts around the goal line, Patrick Mahomes has a great success rate. We don't know what this backfield is going to be doing. So I think I think there's good value there. Like, this was something that I alluded to earlier. I'd probably make this closer to like plus 14 or plus 15. So I think there's good value on it. And look, these are the bets that we want to sweat. If somebody scores, the bet's dead. Let's move on to our next one, right? That'll scratch your itch, Steve. Like, it's dead money. Great. Let's move on.
That's Steve what I love.
Steve likes quick losers.
Quick losers. You got to put the red X on Twitter, make sure to stay tout heavy. You got to do what you got to do. All right. Did you have anything on that, Julian?
First of all, yeah, I do like that, especially since we're talking about two running backs that might be banged up. Mahomes, turf toe, whatever. He's not going to feel his toe when he's on the field. And then, yeah, I do have something else I want to talk about, Steve.
Oh.
Our unreasonable odds boost.
Oh, my God. We do.
Bozo.
Sorry, I did forget to mention that. As we've been doing the Unreasonable Odds podcast as their own odds boost on the DraftKings Sportsbook, try to help make you some money here. So we do have ours for this week. I think hopefully it's a good one. Hopefully people like this one. Had a little pushback one of the weeks. But we have Mahomes over 3 touchdown passes and the Chiefs to win.
Well,
has been
3 plus.
3
over
plus.
2.5.
Let's start this over. So when we edit this, it can be nice and clean. Okay. The Unreasonable Odds podcast has their own odds boost that you can go take a look at on the DraftKings Sportsbook. Try to help you make a little bit of money here. This week, we are presenting Patrick Mahomes, at least 3 touchdowns, and the Chiefs to win, boosted up to plus 130. You can get that on the DraftKings Sportsbook. Go to the odds boost section. I can see Ryan's doing some math in his head as I sit there and talk about this. So hopefully he has a nice take on that one.
Well, he likes the Bucks, so you can't like this if you like the Bucks.
You can't like that one, actually. Yeah, sorry. But we should have confirmed with you first. But that is available over on the DraftKings Sportsbook. Mahomes, 3 passing touchdowns, and the Chiefs to win at plus 130. Ryan, let's hear your take. Good or bad?
So to be very clear, I have yet to bet a spread or a money line in this game.
Oh.
I am on a stance where initially I thought that there was great value in the Bucks, and I have tempered my expectations. I still think that there's value there according to simulations, but it's going to be a close game. So just to go on record, I've yet to bet anything. My stance is kind of whichever team scores first, just bet the other team's live money line at a good number, right? And then enjoy your sweat. Repeat to me the bet again. It was the Chiefs money line with what?
So Patrick Mahomes to throw at least 3 touchdowns and the Chiefs to win at plus 130.
I don't know.
Ryan also has Mahomes potentially rushing one in, which takes away from the passing side.
Yeah, I would have to. Yeah, I don't think I'm clicking that one. But you know what? To be a company man and stay on brand, at least you're getting plus money there. And that, look, the Chiefs money line is close to what, 165 right now on DK Sportsbook. Yep. The over on 3.5 was plus 185. So he has to throw at least 3 so he can push at 3, right? Technically there.
Yep. So no, 3 cashes it.
Yeah, 3 cash. Sorry, that's what I meant. There's not a push at 3.
They
no,
had. I'll help
fine.
you some with some math. It was at plus 110, and got boosted to plus 130.
I think that's great. I actually don't think if you are on the Chiefs and you want to sweat and you're going to a social event and you're kind of just going to eat some wings and root for the Chiefs, like that's the perfect bet right there. I'm all about that one.
I love that company answer, man. I appreciate it. We love that answer. All right. That is going to do it for the Unreasonable Odds podcast. I've tried to wrap this podcast 4 times now. I promise this is actually the end of the show. Want to thank our guest, Ryan Hodge from Fantasy Labs. Go check him out on Twitter at Ryan Hodge. Posts a plenty of things on his Twitter, like crypto talk, esports talk. He does his projections. You can check out his projections too as well. He'll give you all the links and everything you need. Please go check him out on Twitter. I want to thank him for coming on. Sir, love to have you on again, but we appreciate all your insight for the props for this episode.
It was a blast, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me on. And look, at the end of the day, hopefully we don't lose money come Sunday and we can just have a good time.
A lot of green
nice.
check marks coming from the touts, okay? All right, for Julian, Edlow, I'm Steve Buchanan. Catch you guys next week.